How are things going? I do not have chat up on the screen right now because we're doing this through Riverside and it's just not.
Oh,
Uh, I
hey,
can't do it that
I
way.
I got a
Hello?
phone. I can bring up chat.
Well, I have my chat over here set up so that I'll be looking at the camera when I look at chat, so that's nice. Anyway,
Ah,
um, looks like okay, we got somebody in there. How's everything going, people? We have a very special Tongues and Runes episode for you coming up. But first, I just want to quickly, I did run a patron poll from last week, and it was all about what I called the shahiria, the hard mark. Remember, this goes through all vowels if any of the vowels are in the hard vowels per our harmonics. Basically, the ones that are plus ATR or tense or whatever. But I call them hard vowels and hard vowels versus soft vowels because it's a little bit funky in our language due to some sound changes. But anyway, we have usually it's parallel to the central line, which is the edge where the rock would be broken. But I had thought, okay, maybe we could do a little bit of a slanted line for some of these characters that have some of these vowels that have sort of small ones. But it was basically overwhelming. The poll said, no, we just stick to the parallel one. And the one comment I will make is this particular one, the E vowel, did not look quite as good when I actually made it than it did in my head. So that might have been a factor for you guys. I don't know. Um, I could have possibly tweaked it and made it look better, but this is what we ended up with. So this is where we're going. Uh, Other than that, I have some colorful things on my screen. I'm not sure how well this is going to come across to you because it looks like Riverside is messing up the colors a bit. But we have color maps. And you'll notice we get purple and we get a little bit of red here. That red is representing something because after some discussion with people, I have decided that we're going to say that dragons are tetrachromats. And specifically, they can see into the UV range with a separate cone. This is so. Just to be clear, like there are humans that are tetrachromats, but generally the extra cone is like yellowish green or something like that. Like there's two possible green cones tuned to do different frequencies, and some people end up having both of them. So that's not. And then there are some humans that can see ultraviolet, but because we don't have a cone cell for it, they see it as like slightly bluish white. The white cone ends up being excited just slightly more than the other three, but it's kind of a blue white color, and that happens if you don't have a lens in your eye. So that aside, dragons actually have a dedicated cone that extends into ultraviolet light, and that means that a challenge here is that a human being physically cannot see what an ultraviolet tetrachromat can see. Uh, this is something that birds can see. This is something that a lot of reptiles, a lot of insects, a lot of animals can see. Mammals are almost unique in having like lost a lot of color vision, and most mammals only have two, right?
yep.
Yeah, yeah.
That
It's
is correct.
most mammals are dichromatic, and then humans re-evolved the third cone. But a lot of animals are tetrachromatic. And so we'll talk a little bit about how dragons would perceive things differently in the world, but mostly we're going to see about dividing up this color space. And
Yep.
Logan, you can talk a little bit more about like all of the differences in the tetrachromat vision. Logan has a hard out, by the way, at 4:30, so we gotta
Yep.
move on this. But
I do.
uh, yeah,
Otherwise, I would spend hours telling you all about the interesting mathematics of higher dimensional color spaces, and
yes,
how you can do algebra to figure out what the categories are, even though you can't possibly perceive them yourself.
yes.
Uh,
But
but with the time limit, I prepared some illustrations ahead of time, so we can skip to the actual productive bits.
yeah, and we're quick and dirty. You can't actually, just to be like clear, you actually would need a four-dimensional space to model tetrachromat vision.
Yeah, and
Right?
even if we had like accurate images, your computer screen doesn't have a UV uh, subpixel
It
in
doesn't
it,
have
so
UV
it's
pixels.
yeah, it would be impossible to reproduce, and then your eye couldn't pick it up anyway. So these images are not. Well, they're false color. That's the term for it. They're false color. They're not accurate because you can't see what's accurate.
Oh,
But they just kind of
I
represent the
just
spectrum.
Logan, I had no
Yeah.
idea somebody is watching the Olympic opening ceremonies. I did not know that I had
Oh,
put this up
yep,
against that. So we
yep.
might have some people watching after the fact or something, but we'll see.
Well, that's okay.
But yeah, but we can sort of linearly have the spectrum and just say, so this red here is not actually a red. This is the UV range, right?
Yeah, that's the
And
UV end.
and I will say, like, you need a four-dimensional space to figure out all of the like categories that they could see, like all of the like when for human beings the transition from red to yellow is very dramatic and yellow to green is very dramatic. You would have more like very dramatic transitions, I understand, as a tetrachromat. But I don't think we need all of that because we can see a lot more colors than we have basic terms for. Even in
Yes.
English, which has 11 basic color terms, or like I think Russian has 12, it's still a lot less than the number of colors that we can see. We can see millions of them.
Yep.
And
Yep.
like if you take a look at like the color term hierarchy, even even our even like basic even the ones that we have as primary colors, yeah, we're doing colors. um Even the ones that we have as primary colors, we often don't distinguish. There are many languages that do not
Yep.
distinguish between green and blue.
Yep.
So it's
Which
not.
is really, really weird,
Uh-huh.
considering human visual physiology.
Yeah.
Because the red and green cones are really close together, and then the blue
Right.
cone is like way over here, tens of nanometers away.
Uh,
But just because of the fundamental physiological primaries that you have turn out to have only a very loose relation with the psychological primaries, and like what distinctions your brain is programmed to pick out to be relevant to your organism and your niche.
okay. The screen sharing is messing up all of my colors now. I don't know
Oh
what
dear.
something broke because there should be blue and red here. Yeah, and then the other thing I want to say, I'm bringing up my thing. is in Dungeons and Dragons, which we're making this for, there are blue, green, and red dragons, in addition to black and white. So I do feel that we do need to have like something that's centered on blue, green, and red. Um, uh, I don't know, like the with the metallic dragons. Maybe I that's something I should look up in as to whether those metals actually reflect UV differently. Um, there's also a possibility that you could say, like humans categorize dragons more by color than dragons do, but I do feel like they probably would use colors a little bit. Another thing that we can talk about is if I can if I can look up here's an example. If I can look up quickly, like birds, because they can see in UV, they also have patterns in ultraviolet light. And that's another thing that we could consider is that, like, usually dragons in D&D are depicted as being one solid color, which I'm not gonna stray away from that. That's great, just a bright red dragon in front of you. But maybe they would have some UV like modeling
Oh,
or different patterns.
I just had an idea
Uh huh.
that would fit in with why humans think there are only white, black, red, green, and blue dragons. Because
Uh huh.
the red, green, and blue dragons are like a single spectral color. If a UV dragon were a single spectral color, it would appear black to a human.
Oh my. Yeah. I was
So
thinking
we think
about
they're just black dragons, but actually there's black dragons and UV dragons, and we just can't tell them apart.
yeah. That is something that I have thought about is like maybe when I turn this into a book at some point I could stat out a UV dragon, and maybe it would have like a different breath weapon and different traits than a black dragon, and then your characters would think they're going to face acid breath, and that's something totally different. That would be super cool, huh? But we'll sort of incorporate some of that. Um, um, we will. So let's kind of get started. Let's sort of start mapping out like different shapes. So
Yeah.
we want
Well,
something.
first, uh, can I just explain what these images actually represent?
Yeah, sure.
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
quickly.
Okay. So this is both of these are the two-dimensional hue space of tetrachromat vision. Because really quickly, for a monochromat, you can just see brightness. For a dichromat, you can pick out an average spectral position in addition to brightness. So those are the two most salient perceptual dimensions. When you get up to trichromacy, then we can pick out an average spectral position, and we can pick out brightness, and we get this third dimension of saturation, which is basically how much extra junk is there scattered around the spectrum that's making it not a pure single frequency. And we get the one non-spectral color, magenta, where you can stimulate a cone on either side but not in the middle, and so you know that that can't be a spectral color. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you move up to tetrachromacy, you get a lot more non-spectral colors, and you can pick out two distinct spectral peaks at any point.
Oh, okay.
So for trichromat vision, you can tell when things are magenta. You can tell when there's spikes on either side, but not in the middle. But with tetrachromat vision, you can, if there are two spikes anywhere in the spectrum that you're seeing, you will always be able to distinguish at least those two spikes. And then occasionally you get tertiary colors, where like the dragon equivalent of magenta is the weird case where because of the distribution you can actually tell that there must be three distinct spikes here. So how that shakes out in the perceptual space is once you go above 3 dimensions, you get brightness and saturation as two of the perceptual dimensions, and then the rest are just variations on hue.
Okay.
So in the square image, this is the hue space where you have the frequency of one peak along the x-axis and the frequency of the second peak along the y-axis.
Okay.
But you'll notice that that is symmetrical, because like it doesn't matter if you stimulate the green cone and the UV cone or the UV cone and the green cone. Those are the same thing.
Right.
So we can simplify it by chopping it in half, rotating it 45 degrees, and then the x-axis is the spectral color, and the y-axis is the non-spectral hue, which in this
Okay.
particular projection, it's supposed to represent the distance between peaks. So if you
Okay.
go along the x-axis, then that's where is the average spectral peak, and then as you go down on the y, it's what's the distance between the two peaks that are adding up to that average. So the reason it's a triangle is when you get close to one end of the spectrum, the maximum possible distance between peaks is small.
Okay.
Because like if you're seeing something that's really red right on the edge of the detectable spectrum, and the average is in red, then if you start to spread out the peaks away from that average, one of them is going to drop off into things you can't see really quickly.
Okay.
So the maximum distance is genuinely small, and so the y-axis is compressed. So yeah, I tried to represent that in terms of brightness going down on that triangle. I don't know how well that actually worked out, but that's what it's supposed to represent. As you go down the triangle, you're getting larger separations between the two distinguishable spectral peaks.
Okay. So this is not because this looks darker, but basically you're saying that this is kind of the x-axis is kind of more saturation, right?
Well,
It's
it's different from saturation. Saturation
right.
is one of the 2 dimensions that we're not showing in this
Okay.
picture.
So
But yeah,
this is
I made it get darker as you go towards the boundaries, because the idea
okay.
is that like when you get close to the edge of your spectral field, then it doesn't seem as bright anymore. But it could have been represented in any number of ways. It's a metaphor. Just that's what it's supposed to represent.
Yeah, so it's the distance between the two spectral peaks is what you're
Yep.
saying. And
Yep.
so this is a further distance. This is a closer distance. So in some
Yep.
ways it's similar to what saturation is
Yeah.
because it's these up here are clearer like brighter colors
Yeah.
perceptually.
At the very top along the the spectral axis, that single line of colors would represent when you're actually seeing a single pure frequency. So both of the possible peaks are right on top of each other.
Okay. Okay, that is very interesting. Um, but then this is like muddier or something. But
Yeah, so
so
way down at the bottom of that triangle, that would be the average is in the middle, but the distance between peaks is maximized. So
so
that bottom point of the triangle represents a situation where you are seeing peaks in the deep red and the deep ultraviolet simultaneously.
right. So this is like the opposite ends of the spectrum as
Yeah.
peaks, but not really
Yep.
seeing much of the green and blue and stuff here.
Yep.
Okay. That is that is interesting. It is unfortunate that we kind of have to throw out value here because that is an important part of how human color terms are mapped. Because like often like green and blue get like like stuck in with black, but we'll just
Mm-hmm.
have to do it this way because we
Yeah.
again we
You
just cannot represent tetrachromatic
Yeah.
color.
You already know what saturation and value look like.
Yeah.
So, like, you can put a box around a region and then just have a note that says, when it's unsaturated, this region is called this. When it's fully saturated, it's called this. When it's darker, it's called this.
Yeah. So let's let's talk about this. So what I want to start with is we want some colors that are centered on the red, the green, and the blue because those are the primary colors of dragons. And this is very very like
Approximate.
impressionistic,
Yeah.
and it's fine. It's going to be fuzzy anyway because if you know from your own color perception that the transitions between colors are not you see them as dramatically different colors when you see the central thing, but if you watch a transition through the whole spectrum, you will not find a point where you definitely know you have transitioned from red to orange or orange to yellow, all of that, because it's
Yep.
just perceived as one continuous line. We can probably also have one color term that is specifically UV. And we were talking about this a little bit beforehand. We were
Mm-hmm.
thinking about if what kinds of things in the natural environment look UV. There's a lot of things that look the like anti UV, as Logan put it. Like
Yep.
anything that fluoresces under a black light will actually be dark in UV light, right? So it will absorb UV light. There's things that are very reflective will reflect UV light. Anything that is a lot of things that are white to us, like snow, will reflect a lot of UV light as well as visible light. But crucially, like polar bears and like juvenile Arctic seals and Arctic wolves and stuff, they still absorb UV light, but they are, even though invisible light, they're all white. So there's issues around that. But I think the safest thing that we thought of is the sky
Mm-hmm.
to something that sees in UV. The sky will be extremely strongly UV because and there's a wonderful video by Veritasium that covers that shows you the view through a UV camera and talks about a bunch of this stuff. But one thing is Rayleigh scattering for UV light is it scatters 5 times more than any visible light. So that's going to completely wash out blue. They're not going to see the sky as blue. They're going to see the sky as UV, and there will also be there's actually like a trade-off with your long distance visibility because you will see a UV haze in the distance much much closer than where we see like a blue or a purple haze in our vision. And so so like a UV, like I'd say the sky would look UV and that could be a source, but like probably like dragons might like even like just think air is the UV color. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good thought.
Yeah. So this is where we can start. I kind of, this color is interesting to me, but I don't know if I want to like specify it down here or like make it a bigger thing. Like these are all the things that are, I don't know how they would even describe it.
They're analogous to magenta.
Okay, so this is magenta, huh? So this is magenta.
Well, magenta would be slightly up and to the left.
Okay. So
Because magenta is the non-spectral hue, the single non-spectral hue category that humans can see. All the other non-spectral colors are variations on saturation and brightness.
So magenta is like in here somewhere?
Well, shifted over away from the UV end.
Oh, okay.
So to
Over
the
here,
left.
then. Okay.
Yeah, because that would represent, something that is centered roughly in the middle of the human spectrum and with a wide separation between peaks. And that's the situation where we can actually pick up a non-spectral color, because you can see the red cone is activated, the blue cone is activated, the green cone is not activated. So something weird is going on here, and that's what we see as magenta.
So this is so this line up here is spectral colors. This is where we get into the non-spectral.
Yeah, that's the non-spectral hue.
So, if I'm thinking about this, then they would see a color here in this region that humans cannot distinguish at all.
Yeah, so that would be like the combination of UV and green.
Okay.
And
So
and a little further over, you'd get the combination of UV and blue.
Okay. So let's say this is I'm not exact with where my circles are. Let me actually change my thing so that I can actually read what I'm just whatever font that will actually let me see English. So this would be like UV plus green. Why is it still what? It's still in the the okay, I didn't hit apply. Okay. So UV plus green. UV.
Oh, actually, while we're talking about this, I should point out there are several other interesting color categories on here that are physically impossible for humans to distinguish because of how we do the processing in our retinas to transform physical inputs into perceptual colors. There is no such color as reddish green, even though red and green are like right next to each other, and there is no such color as bluish yellow.
Okay,
like
so
those are psychologically impossible to perceive. But for dragons, reddish green absolutely exists because it's a red spike and a green spike.
So it would be in this region you'd get reddish green, right?
Yep. And
so you get
Yeah, and
bluish
bluish yellow.
yellow. I'm not sure even where that would be. Like
Just a little bit to the
somewhere around
right of
here.
where. Yeah, right about there.
Yeah, but this is magenta, which it doesn't look magenta on the diagram because of how you had to do
Right.
it. But yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, I don't think we need to get too far into the weeds. I do kind of like the division between the magenta and this UV plus green color. This this one, you mentioned before that a lot of plants reflect UV light pretty well. So do you think
Yes.
maybe like leaves might be
Yeah.
that color sort of?
Yeah, that'd probably be a good source for that. Um, and I mean, you could easily justify stretching that out to cover like the range of UV plus green and UV plus blue. But
Mm-hmm.
if you wanted a distinct UV plus blue color, uh, ravens or crows would probably be a good source for that. Because even in human visible light, they're just faintly blue if you look really closely.
Oh, okay. So so like let's see. So the if
If
we yeah, if we wanted to move this over here and have one over here that's the UV plus blue, then we
Yeah,
could talk about
you could do
crows and
that.
ravens. I would say that's getting a little bit too greedy. We don't want to, because like there's a lot of things that drive color terms, and
Yeah.
we don't want it to be we don't want to have a ton of things because a lot of things that drive human color terms wouldn't necessarily matter to dragons. Stuff like
Yep.
dyes,
Yep.
they're not going to I mean, after they encounter humans and they start plundering human stuff, maybe they will care more about it. But they probably aren't going to think too much about dyes. They,
Hmm.
I think these colors, I think some differentiation in these colors will be important because their own color patterns might might involve these. So um, and so I labeled this magenta, but this can extend into some colors that we don't see. So
Yep.
that like a dragon will be describing another dragon and say, oh, he has a magenta on the tips of his horns and a magenta a magenta marking across his neck, and then a human looks at it and like,
It's red.
no, that doesn't make any sense. That's not true. But it's the color that they group magenta with that humans can't see, right? That would
Red
be
plus
that.
UV.
Yeah. So right. So we can have what is magenta? Is
It's red plus blue. Red
is
cone
red plus
activation and blue
blue?
cone activation.
So red plus blue. So we could have red plus blue and the red plus the UV
Yep.
all
All
all in
together.
one category. Right. Okay. And this is another thing about this is like this is going to get crazy confusing for human wizards that use this language because they're like these colors will probably be fine except for the UV. We can't see UV, but like these colors they will understand. And I'm thinking actually the UV might extend a bit into purple, right? And
Yeah,
then
that's reasonable.
yeah, and so like some humans might think this means purple, but it doesn't actually mean purple, right? And then we have a blue and a green
Or if you
and a
want to be
red.
really technical about it, it would be violet.
Violet, yes. Um, okay. That's another thing. So we can think about leaves as a possible source. We could talk about like specific plants if there's a specific plant that has leaves that reflect a lot of UV light. That could be a source for this one. Magenta.
Where does the word magenta even come from? I
That's a
just
good
realized I
question.
don't know that.
Let me look
Google
at.
that.
So we're doing colors that humans can't see. So we're not gonna be able to use clicks for everything. Um,
Oh, huh. Apparently magenta comes from the name of a town where a particular dye was invented or discovered.
oh,
So
okay.
that's not helpful.
Magenta. Yeah, we're not doing that kind of thing in here because that's a bridge too far
Yeah.
in specifying world building.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want people to have a specific location in their things. Not that I would even do that anyway with this particular color because it's like you don't want to do the same thing as English, right?
Yeah.
But that is, um, I think this. I think that calling this sky or haze, or um, not fog, but air
Mm-hmm.
is like a cool idea that we can work with. Like this is the color of the sky and of the air. Um, I was thinking about doing just getting red from blood.
Yeah.
Um, pretty simple. They'll encounter red blood, and I would assume that dragons themselves have hemoglobin blood. Just unless you want for your world that they don't, and give them green blood or something. But probably a lot of the things that they eat would have hemoglobin blood anyway. So yeah. Um, so what are things that are? Although I do want to know, like, when I do this, I need to like check now if blood. Okay, so people use UV light to detect blood, but that's doing a phosphorescence thing.
Oh,
So
here we go.
blood fluoresces in UV light, right?
I think so.
Yeah, hold on. UV light and forensics. Forensic light helps. Um, Many biological fluids are fluorescent in nature, including
Oh.
sweat, saliva, blood, and semen. So it's fluorescent. And then one rule that I learned is if it fluoresces under a UV light, then it will be black to UV.
Yeah.
That means it absorbs UV, because what happens
Uh,
is the UV frequency is absorbed, and then it excites electrons, and then um, those those electrons then um, they go back down an energy level and give off a different wavelength, usually in the visual spectrum. And so,
apparently, blood is the only body fluid that does not fluoresce in the visible range.
really,
Uh, yeah, you have to add forensic chemicals to make it actually show up so humans can see it. Uh,
okay,
but it does. I think it does still absorb UV because the
okay,
the thing I am reading about detection of body fluids with alternate light sources uh, says that it does not fluoresce in the visible range. Which,
okay.
I mean, if they're wording it that way, it probably like fluoresces in infrared or something.
Miles, what do you mean it has to be equivalent wavelengths to excite it?
The that is not entirely accurate, because you can jump multiple energy bands by absorbing a
Uh-huh.
UV photon, and then emit several as you go down.
Right. Right. So you have to emit equivalent energy, Miles. You don't have
Yeah,
to emit exactly the same wavelength. Because that doesn't make sense to me. Because there's a lot of things that that emit in different wavelengths than they were excited by.
like lasers.
Yeah, lasers. Yeah, I was thinking lasers. What? How do you excite the atoms in lasers? Is it? It's you just
Oh,
you have a
all
different
sorts of different
wavelength of light you're
ways.
shining in, right?
Yeah.
They'd have to be, yeah, for not to have, they'd have to be non-terrestrial or be an arthropod. Yeah, it's possible, you know, even
Or
though
an
they're
Arctic
related.
fish. Well, that's
What?
non-terrestrial. I was saying or an Arctic fish, but those are non-terrestrial.
Yeah, yeah. Some of my when I get working on serpentine, some of my sea serpents might have like green blood. I don't know about that though. It's kind of like they're closely
There are
related to dragons, but it
lizards.
also it's magic world, so we don't really need to worry about that.
There are lizards that have green blood because they do have hemoglobin, but they also have other pigments that overwhelm the red color.
The what is it, cyano whatever? Yeah.
It's biliverdin.
Oh, okay. Okay, so that's like a byproduct, is it? So
Yeah,
so we've
it's a thing
got
that most creatures filter out in their livers, but there's some lizards that, for some reason, just keep it around in their blood. It turns them green.
okay. So this is what we're thinking about for basic color terms, and there will also be a black and a white. Just that is not on this chart because it won't fit.
Yep.
We could think about possibly having a gray as well, which is also not in this chart.
Yep. I
Like
did
gray and brown.
find I found a plausible source for magenta,
Uh huh.
because it turns out there are a lot of fruits and flowers that have a magenta spectrum, specifically because magenta is anti-green, so it
Okay.
stands out better against the background of foliage.
Oh, okay. That sounds good. And also, and flowers are really good because, like, it can be a lot of flowers have the have will have like not just magenta, but in this other color that they're grouping with magenta that humans can't
Mm-hmm.
see because because a lot of pollinators, particularly bees and butterflies, can see in UV.
Yep. Yep. Lots of
So
flowers have UV patterns.
yeah, if you go online and look, I'm not gonna spend more time like looking up pictures, but like sunflowers have like it's like a UV dark region close to the center. There's some flowers that have like UV bright areas on the ends of their petals and stuff like that. It's generally patterns that will lead an insect toward where the nectar and the pollen is. So blood is a pretty good one. Sky or air is pretty good for UV. Questions now is like what could be good sources for green and blue. I'm a little bit iffy about fruit and flowers because I don't know how much dragons will care about it since they're predators
Mm.
and the obligate carnivores is what I'm assuming. but maybe they still will pay attention to different species of flowers because they tend to grow where prey is, something like that. Green and blue, I guess we need to think about things that are green or blue in nature, but don't don't reflect a lot of UV, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if it reflects UV a little bit, I think it's fine to be for blue at least because like we've got this region here. We can say that the blue extends into purple region a little bit.
Um,
And we could say that green extends a little bit into this like weird fourth fourth dimension thing going on.
um, glass could be a decent source for blue, because glass
Glass.
blocks UV. So
Yes.
the background sky haze color turns blue if you look through glass.
It's not exactly natural, but it's something to
Mm.
think about. Is there anything? I mean, you can get natural glass formations, and maybe, I mean, there are dragons that breathe fire, and there are dragons that breathe lightning. So maybe they make glass very early. Thing is, like, I think that glass would look more like like opposite of UV to them than it would look
Yeah,
blue. I
yeah.
think it
Well,
would
if you're
be,
looking at white light through it, then it would be anti UV. But if you're looking at the
yeah,
sky, then it would filter out the UV so that it then looks blue.
yeah. So I'm thinking about that. Like, it would look, it would give it would basically put a UV filter on everything, and then they would
Hmm.
be seeing all of these colors but not the UV, and it would feel like everything is shifted down in the spectrum.
Yeah.
Is what I'm thinking. So it's a possibility. I'm not super sold on it. Green. So we said that leaves often reflect UV, but yeah, I don't know. Another thing. Well, okay. Let's back up here. What if what if instead of that we have like bear with me. Let me get a different tool so I can draw funny shapes. What if instead we have something like this going on? So that you still have leaves meaning green, but it also means this other color. Is that too much of a
Yeah.
stretch?
No. No. That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Because
The other one is it
for
would be
most
to extend the magenta up
leaves,
here.
yeah, for most leaves, the UV reflectance is like not super high,
Right?
um, but like they wouldn't be UV black, but they're still mostly green.
Okay.
So that would make sense if it's a broader kind of category.
Yeah. So,
And then you kind of get into like the Gru cyan range as well.
yeah.
Um, so like green through cyan and into the non human visible colors.
Yeah. Um okay, here's a thought then. What? Control Z? I, I did not mean to do that. If we let's bring that back. what if we say like green is like leaves?
Mm-hmm.
And then like this is kind of a broad term, and it goes into some areas of magenta and some areas of the UV plus green. I don't know. I kind of want to keep magenta as its thing because that will overlap with magenta and it will cause fun confusions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. The so is there a plant that is known to be like particularly reflective of UV?
Uh, let me do some quick googling. Um,
Or even
hmm.
an animal that is green that is also reflected of UV. That would be kind of strange because I think most animals absorb UV.
Um,
Well, I mean
you could
there's
go
like
with you could go with like the idea of blooming foliage, just like a seasonal color, because so many
okay.
flowers reflect UV. Like a dragon flying over a forest of flowering trees in the right time of year would see all of the green from the leaves, all of the UV from the flowers, to give like the foliage a composite color
Right. Okay.
from a distance.
That gives me an idea. So spring foliage. This is green, and they call this color spring green.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And um and um I'm kind of like thinking of these sources, and like I'm not necessarily saying that we need to have these like sources
Oh,
for them.
copper. Copper could be a source for blue.
Copper?
Yeah, because
Why copper?
copper and bronze naturally turn blue when they patina.
Copper looks more greenish, doesn't it?
Boundaries are fuzzy, but like copper sulfate is bright blue. There's lots of copper minerals that are blue.
Okay.
So copper or bronze.
That would be very interesting because there are also copper and bronze dragons. So that
Yeah.
would be
Bronze. Okay, I just googled images, and bronze is much more obviously blue than pure copper.
okay. Uh, yeah, that's a bit more bluish. Okay, so we could go with like a bronze patina. Um, the thing is, like, okay, so bronze is an alloy. Are we going to
Mm-hmm.
say that, like, because of the fire breathing of red dragons, they have their own tradition of metallurgy, or is this something a color that they named after they encountered humanoids? Um, that's a question. You know, um,
Yeah.
there could be, yeah. So, well, I think we have a good thing. I'm just going to put out here, we will also have a word for white. We will also have a word for black. Are we going to have a word for gray? Maybe, like gray or brown. I don't know. This is getting to be a lot of color terms, but in terms of like the level of like tech we're talking about, but also this is a
but keep in
unique
mind
situation.
they can see more colors than we can. So
Right. So they
like
can see
if
more colors. So it's likely that they would get a further progression even without the kind of material culture that humans have.
yeah, because like if humans had dichromat vision like dogs, I would expect we would have many fewer basic color terms
Right.
because there are fewer categorical distinctions that we could see to assign terms to. So
I
dragons
don't I don't
can
know if
see
we
more
would even
categories.
have I don't know if we would even have color terms between light and dark because when you're seeing
Well,
only two colors, maybe
keep in
you would.
mind, dichromats can pick out spectral color.
Yeah, they can.
So you've got the spectrum from red. So the dichromat spectrum is actually kind of weird because it can't distinguish saturation. The spectrum goes from red through white to blue,
Oh, okay.
and then you've got darker shades of all of that. So dark red, gray, dark blue, and then that's
Oh,
kind of it.
could they describe blue as spring foliage without sky? I would want to clearly distinguish green and blue just because there are green and blue dragons. I kind of want that. I kind of do want red, green, and blue to be separate because there are the red, green, and blue dragons. Now,
Well,
for the
and another
metallics,
thing is
yeah,
you could just have ancient, fundamental, underived color terms for
yeah,
the colors of
that's
dragons.
that's definitely a possibility. And maybe I will actually go with that for this. I am not sure about. So the thing is, like Ndakaga, the way I'm positioning it, it is like an ancestral language that some of the ancient dragons still speak.
Oh,
But before there was splits between the chromatics and the metallics and within those groups between the different colors. So my thinking would be that maybe that they wouldn't have necessarily been like sorted by color in the beginning. There probably would be a lot of color variation in the population though, in order to for the red, green, blue, white, black, all of that to arise. So I'll have to think about that.
well, we are at my time limit, so I've got to drop off. But I think we made
Okay.
some pretty good progress.
Yeah, we've made some progress. I think we have our basic. I'll have to think about whether we're going to have any kind of a gray. I don't know if we need it, but yeah, you go ahead and drop. Maybe. Would you be available next week, or you alternating weeks is when you can do stuff like
Alternating
this, right?
weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we'll see you, Logan.
Okay.
And
Bye.
we can continue working on this like another time. But this is good to have our basic categories.
All right. See you
All
later.
right. See ya. Chat. What do you guys think? Should I wait for Logan to come back on, or should I like start working on roots now. Um, the Olympic ceremony just finished, and Logan just left. Well, let's go over what we did today. Because I kind of I can talk to Logan about whether we can have him on in a couple of weeks and talk more about it. But we have our basic terms. So we will have. You want to do roots now, huh? Let's see. Well, let's go over our categories that we have. We will have a white and a black, which is not on this chart because this chart is not showing saturation. It's not showing value because it has to use this to show a dimension of color that humans cannot even see, which is the distance between the two peaks in a non-spectral color. You guys, if you missed it, if you missed that part, you can go back and listen to Logan's explanation. But it's like humans can see magenta, and magenta is like a weird. It's like I spelled gray the correct way for me. Okay, Jake. Magenta is a weird one because it's got I'm going to say it's got like red and blue in it, and which shouldn't actually be the same, right? Um, uh, but but dragons can see a lot of other colors that are like that because they can see the combination of red and UV, the combination of green and UV, combination of red and blue, which humans can see. So they have a lot more of this kind of thing going on. So we have basic color terms. We'll have a white and a black. I decided red, green, and blue need to be distinct because dragons are those three colors. UV, there will be one centered on UV, but I think it'll extend a little bit into visible purple. Okay. And then it's very strange, but this is where magenta is on the diagram. We'll have a basic color term for magenta, and it covers some surrounding colors that humans can't see. And I think this will be sort of not quite basic. I think this is the combination of UV and green. It's not actually cyan. Like cyan is here. Or cyan is like combining green and blue. It would be like around in here. I don't think I want to call this cyan because the calling this by an English color term is going to be weird because it includes UV. And we can't it's fundamentally a color that we cannot see. So I'm just going to have to just say it's UV plus green. But it'll be derived from the term for green. And what Logan was saying was like in the spring when there are a lot of flowers out, and some of those flowers absorb UV, some of those reflect UV quite a bit. Then you would see more UV in amongst the foliage, and you could say this is like what plants look like in the spring. Yeah, no. This when I say magenta, this is literally where magenta would be on their color chart. This is the combination of red and blue. So, like this. So they can always distinguish. They can always see two peaks, right? And this shows the distance between the two peaks. Up here are spectral colors that will have like where the peaks are very close together or almost like the same, right? And down through here, we're getting into where the peaks are further apart. So this is around this region is where you have red mixed with blue, which is what magenta is. So it's a little bit weird that it's in a region of the color map that looks green, but this remember, this is an abstract representation of something we cannot actually see because we don't have a UV cone. So let's actually, so we got some time before 5 o'clock. Let's go ahead. I'm going to go ahead and start generating some roots. I can refine this a little bit later with some input from Logan to sort this out. But we can pull up our, first of all, let's look up, what do we got here? Groovine. Groovine. But this is like almost not even a basic color term because it'll be derived from green, I think. So let's pull up Obsidian. Let's see what of these like possible sources I've got we already have. Do we have a word for blood? Blood. Ipran. So, and like Logan said, we don't necessarily need to have this derived from anything, but blood is actually good for red because blood, hemoglobin blood, doesn't reflect UV, so it will be red to dragons as well as to us. So we can think about this Ipran, and the easiest way to do something with that would be we could have it be Ipran key. So like Ipran key. Ipran key, which is Ipran plus this suffix ki, right? Which is blood, like bloody, right? It's a thought. Let's do we have a word for leaf or plant? I have a word for tree. I have words for coniferous trees and deciduous trees. So chimfraki would be, we could do with chimfraki. Not really feeling that one. Or a'aki. A'ake. A'ake. That's actually kind of cool. And let's see. Let's see. Pine, conifer in UV. Yeah. Let me look at photos of trees. I don't think people take pictures of trees, but I kind of want to see if they're like different leaves. Yes, if it's an evergreen, that would be even more distinct to the spring foliage. Right. That's right. So if we have ke, and since I have the ipranki ke, now he was thinking about bronze patina. I'm iffy on that. Now let's see. Um, so we said the sky will be. The sky is going to be UV, but there's also like a UV haze over everything a certain distance away, and it's not that far that the haze starts going in. If you look at UV videos, UV photography, like the haze is like maybe 100, 200 feet away. It's not. It starts to get hazy really quick. Um, let's see. Here. Okay, so here we got. So here we've got images of some landscapes. This is infrared. Okay. So here is some. So plants, if you look at this, like the grass. Okay, this is correcting for the sky. And the grass doesn't reflect that much UV, right? Um we can, but it reflects a little bit. Flowers are very, some flowers are very vibrant in UV. Ah, I can't see it. So this looks like it's a nighttime photo, so it's not really. What is this? Yeah, you have to be a little cautious. So this is something. Okay, I don't know what what they're doing with this. It's it may be that newer leaves reflect more. So let's 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 do this. Um, so we don't do noun compounds in this language, which is something we need to keep in mind. We have to like adjectivize something. Let's get us an actual like a new root for green first, and then let's that's not where I want to be. Let's go to Lexifer. No, I just give me 10 words. I don't want to sift through all this. Okay, so I think Feek. Uh, Here's what I'm going to do: is I'm going to make green like an ancient root, and then I'm going to derive the the um, the spring green and the evergreen green as separate ones, so that we have that sort of difference there. So let's look what that's going to be. Oh no! Oh no! Um, I know what that's going to be. Oh wait, what? Uh, Fug. No, I don't want that to be green. Let's find some other ones. I'm not gonna do that. Let's go with, let's look at Inca Atu. Let's generate one more. Okay. Aja Ita Inga and Pa. So let's do a quick poll. Um, let's go. So our root for green. And what we're going to say is this is a basic color term that covers two like very, very different colors. Um, so we have Aja, Aja, Ida. We've got Inga, Inga, or Pa. And the origins of this are lost in the mists of time. We'll just say that this has meant green um, since like proto-reptilian. Maybe before that it even meant like blue-green, and we can do something fun that way. Yeah. Okay. So we got. Oh, it seems like we've got a dead heat right now. Let's see how many people are on here. Oh, we just have a couple of people on, huh? Okay. Well, I'm showing somebody can be a kingmaker here and finish this off. I'll give you one more minute on that. And then we'll have to think about. We have a word for spring. You made it worse. Okay. So it's between Aja, Inga, Aja, Inga, and Pa. Um, I really like both Aja and Inga. Not so much pho. I'm gonna go with Aja. Aja for green, and then Inga. Inga, I'm going to. That's fine. That's fine. You don't have to reveal that it was you. Aja. Do I want Aja or Inga? Well, Aaki. Aaki Aja. Aaki Inga. Aaki Aja. Aaki. Aaki Inga. This is kind of tongue twistery, but no, we're going to go with Inga. And this is no, Americans can be quite loud about who we're going to vote for. But there will be a contingent who just don't want to tell you, and they don't have to. There's also there are laws about not photographing your ballot and stuff too. Um, so this means green. And here's what I'm going to do. Okay, so okay. Okay. So Aakir, but we're not going to. So Aakir by itself can mean green, or so Aakir by itself. So it's etymology. Which is the one that's a spruce? Let me just double check. Yeah, this is the one for a coniferous tree. This by itself means green, but also you can say the I was thinking about jamming them together, but actually, kit, kinga. No, I'm gonna that will happen in some future daughter languages, but for now it's still separated. And this is kit. So and then etymology. Okay. Plus Inga. And it means just the same thing. And then this, now we need a word for spring. Spring we don't have. So, and I had not actually thought about the seasons, but okay, dragons are wide ranging. They will travel over a wide range of climates. So they'll be in temperate regions. They will see spring happen. So let's kind of look into ways that it could be spring, or it could be flower. When you have a word for flower, I just have neglected flower. How about that? So, iseki, I don't think is gonna be the word for this color, because the thing is, like, if you're looking at an individual flower, then what they're gonna see is the variety of color patterns that flowers show in UV, right? So that's not the thing. So it's still gonna have to be spring. Let's go with our aja. Let's just have that be a root meaning spring, as in the season. And then or no, I've got it. No. Isiti. So we're going to have flower involved. So this is ise means flower plus iti. Uti is like our prefix full. It means full of something. And then that can mean flowery, full of flowers. But isiti and oh, what happened there? Isiti inga is flowery green. So we end up with, and this is an adjective. Okay, so there we go. So we've mapped out our basic colors, and we've got, and this one will be, so this is aake. Let's write it this way. It's aake inga. And this is isiti inga. I'm gonna debate myself whether I want to have ipranchi mean, it's gonna mean bloody, but then also mean if it also means red, and then that has implications because then we're going to be calling red dragons bloody dragons. Yeah. Well, it's time for me to hop off. One last thing for you guys to 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 say is like, do you want me to continue filling out these terms? Huh? We can we can sort of the bloody dragons. I think maybe next time I was considering whether this is gonna be the last episode, but I think maybe we can continue and just finish out these terms with roots and be done with this next time. Um, and then after that, we'll see about. I am almost ready to like just put the whole close on this and move on to the Sylvan. I just I have some things that I want to like do with the announcement and stuff. So anyway, that's it for this week. Uh, we're still working on tetrachromatic color. If you missed it because you were watching the opening ceremony, go back and watch Logan's explanation because it's really good. And I'm going to say, happy conlanging. Okay.